Hello, friends. David Vos here, and out here at the lake. Beautiful day. Got the dogs with me, and they're having fun, and you might see them run by here and there. But today, I don't really know what I want to say, except that I had some thoughts in my mind. Um, with all this going on, I wonder how many people out there are starting to get depressed. And starting to feel defeated and scared. Scared because this is to the logical mind. I think we're noticing that something's going on here. I mean, even if it's not some big, huge crisis that's going to, you know, like the end of the world, okay? But just in terms of somebody that's in the city, they lost their job, and I've heard this from others, and it's kind of been in my mind too. But it feels like a lot of the things we were planning. You might have had an idea. Well, one day I'm going to go get me some property in the woods or something. And some of you might think, well, now I can't do that because there's no future, or we don't know if the whole system where we buy and sell things is going to still be here in a month or year from now. Going into a new system is scary and uncertain. And just to, like I say, even besides the literal real fear of some terrible pandemic, or that people could die, or people could lose their jobs, and or somebody in your family's lost their jobs, they're staying with you, and there's a lot of philosophical talking going on, whatever's going on. And then one begins to think about our own mortality, and how things happened with Germany in World War II that they probably had no idea 5-10 years before that. And things that happened in Russia before the Bolshevik Revolution. You imagine what people felt. I just saw some information about a guy. He was talking on TED, that show that I don't know where that's from or anything. I've seen it on YouTube. I don't know if that's the only place that they show it, but there's these talks that certain individuals give on TED. And this guy was a journalist, and he said, "Do you know that there are secret prisons in the United States?" And I thought, secret prisons? Well, I want to hear about that, because I don't think I've heard that put that way. I just want to see what he's talking about. So he says that there's a few major prisons that inside the prison, they have another prison, sort of a smaller area that is a secret area that nobody even knows about. They have different rules. He was saying that if you're in a normal prison, you can write letters pretty much all you want. You can have visitors. People know you're there. You can apply for an appeal. You can get a lawyer. You talk to your lawyer. Things like that. But with this particular secret prison that's in several of the major prisons, you don't get you can see somebody, you can have a visitor, but there's no physical contact, and it's a very monitored visit. You're not allowed to talk about certain things, because most of those people in there are political prisoners. And he talked about a couple of people that was in there, one of which was, some of them were Muslim, they were political prisoners, and he talked about some of them that they really hadn't done anything wrong. This one guy did something, like we went over there and we bombed Iraq. And so this guy from Iraq came over here as a refugee. And since he knew other people from Iraq, which he couldn't help knowing other people because he was related to them. And one of these individuals that he knew, he happened to know, did some shenanigan. Because he was related to him or had some connection to him, they considered this person to be a threat. But remember now, we're not talking about, because a lot of people might think, well, that's a good thing because they're political prisoners, they might be terrorists or something. Well, here's the thing. This really isn't a place where they're really concerned about physical terrorist activities. This is really a place where they don't like it when people have truth that they're speaking about the government. In other words, they don't got the people that bombed the World Trade Center or whatever, like they're in Guantanamo or whatever. These are real terrorists, but these are not the kind of terrorists you would think. They're not even terrorists. They're just people that have knowledge. So that guy that was the Muslim that's in that as a political prisoner, he just knows about stuff that went on. And there's certain information they don't want anyone to know. So they get into this place where they don't allow them to talk or to speak. Nobody in the press knows that they're in there or knows anything about their trial. And he talked about another guy that was in there, and this was a regular American. And the American, he had known about some political shenanigans that the CIA did or something. He had told people around him that he had been in jail. They finally let him out. He was in there for some years. He told people after he got out that he was in jail or in prison for political reasons to keep him quiet. And the next day, they came. I guess they can monitor everything you say. They can find out what you're doing. You got to be very careful. He didn't do anything wrong. He didn't go to the press. He just told some of his friends that he was in there for political reasons. They didn't like him saying that. They took him back to jail. So there are things in this government that's much worse than anything we ever heard that the Gestapo or, the Gulag ever did. But in our country, we're so literally brainwashed and dumbed down and lied to and deceived that we don't know how awful people in our government, what they've been doing, certain individuals, the shadow government that's taken over our government. And they don't want anybody to find out. But you think about stuff like that. I mean, there's a plot, that we've been talking about. We've been following them, how they put the satellites in the air, and that was just in preparation to get this grid around all of us and get all of our information. We thought for years, we get viruses. We just thought that was some big crazy thing, some kid down in his basement. Why are they You ever wonder, why are they putting viruses on my computer, trying to destroy my computer? And you thought, well, maybe a conspiracy theory. You're thinking, well, maybe they're trying to, you were told they were trying to get your bank account information or something like that. But you think, well, wait a minute. This never happens to my bank account. That's always pretty secure. It seems like it's always, just somehow it's a virus to shut down your computer so it doesn't work anymore. Like, what's the deal? Why are they trying to break my computer? Well, they were going in and pulling data out of file systems. And when you do that, if you don't do it in a proper program, if you just rip files out in a certain way, it removes certain program files that the computer needs to run. And so therefore, the sequence or the code that's in your computer that runs that program will shut down, and you'll have you'll try to turn your computer on, and you'll try to click on that program. It'll get to a certain sequence, and then it'll shut down, because when they stripped your computer of that certain bit of information, maybe they got your files on your beliefs. A lot of it is just monitoring what you believe, because they're paranoid. The elite are paranoid, and they were tracking and monitoring everybody. So what makes a person a political enemy? Well, lots of people have information that they don't want people to know, but it's not like it's like I could say right now, oh, the aliens are going to come tomorrow. It's a conspiracy and you don't know about it, but they're coming and they're going to kill everybody. They don't care if I say that, even if it's true, because they know you're not going to believe it. There's no evidence or proof or anything. And so, I mean, there's so many people that make statements or Bill Gates the Antichrist. They don't care. You can say that. They don't. Everybody in the world already thinks Bill Gates the Antichrist. They don't care. What they don't want is somebody who has any intentions of legally making any case in court or to somehow embarrass them or expose something so that people will believe it. Now, if you get to a certain point where you have enough followers or subscribers or whatever, like Alex Jones, you get to a certain place where people believe in you and listen to you, and you're affecting, it's getting back to them, then they will find ways to get rid of you. Now, if you're Assange or Alex Jones, they can't just grab you and put you in jail, because then you become a martyr. So what this guy was saying is that there is this program, and it's very hush-hush and very few people know about this, but certain individuals that work in the government that have information that the government's using these people because they're very intelligent or they're very psychic or they're very, they have knowledge that the government wants. And if they start waking up and start wondering what they're doing and they don't want to cooperate anymore, or they want to expose it or something, the government puts a little patch on them. Now, there was this one particular guy that tells the story. Now, otherwise we wouldn't know about this, but it's been confirmed and this has been verified by others. But certain individuals, top secret, areas of our government, have this happen to them. They wake up after they've done some business with the government. Maybe they're an undercover agent or there's something. And they wake up one day after this weird dream, like they feel like they've been asleep for days. And they look down, and there's this weird patch on their chest. And I guess it kind of looks like squishy, gooey something inside of a little plastic patch or something. And it kind of makes a weird, gushy feeling when they touch it. Well, it's kind of like a nicotine patch. It's a drug. And I don't know whether your body gets addicted to it real quick and you can't live without it, or it's some other kind of situation. But what it is, you can't take it off. If you do, the pain is excruciating. As long as you wear your patch, you can live. And you go about giving them what they want, doing the things they need you to do, and acting in accord. But if you wanted to go out and try to expose that, and go to the press, well, they will kill you. They have other means in our government. I mean, like I've said before, there's a one little program that they use called the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. In that church, the entire 10 million or whatever it is, however many people that they got, 20 million or whatever, all the young people, when they reach 18, sometimes 19 or 17, I don't know what the youngest say, I think it has to be 18. They go on what they call a mission. So what we're talking about is few hundred thousand of these young men that, go on these missions. Well, when they go on a mission, they send them to foreign countries so they learn a different language. A lot of them do. Not all of them. Sometimes they're sent to a local place. But I think, for the most part, most of the Mormon missionaries do learn another language. Sometimes two. And of course they learn to be regimented. They're not allowed to drive a car usually. Usually they ride a bicycle. In some places they just walk. And in some places they have a car. Depends on where they are. A lot of times they'll go to countries like Africa or China, where they're just walking or riding their bike. Even sometimes in the United States. So they learn to live in a certain little quiet little apartment. They have a very strict regiment where they got to go to bed at a certain time. Their whole day is more or less they're told what to do. From a certain time they wake up. Then they got to go to a meeting. After they get out of the meeting, then they have to go riding their bike around and going to people's homes and seeing if they're okay and asking if they need help and having Bible studies or Book of Mormon studies. And they come back at a certain time. They have to go to church, another certain kind of meeting, elder meetings and stuff. But it's all regimented. And remember that in order to get into this little thing, they have interviews with you every, few days or every week or two, and ask you if certain personal questions they'll ask them if they've ever masturbated, and so it's very difficult. They make sure that these young men don't get their mind thinking about anything else other than their objective. They're kind of like an FBI agent. They have you remember 007? He would get a piece of paper, would get his instructions, and then it would just, after he read it, it would just like automatically decompose or something, and no one else would know the instructions but that agent. Well, basically these missionaries are like agents, and they learn how to, they get their little journal, and every day they have to write down their instructions and what they're going to do, and their back calls. And Jehovah's Witnesses have the same kind of program. They're trained in the same way, go from door to door, and they got a little journal, and they got to write down all their back calls and all their hours in their service, and tattle on people, and when they have their lessons, they got to write it down and underline and say the right words and learn how to be regimented. Both parties, both of these groups will wear a certain costume. It has to be a black suit and white shirt. And it has to be a certain suit, a certain color. All Mormons, when they go to church, anybody in their priesthood has to wear a white shirt. And then at a certain point, if you go into the temple, they give you some underclothes. There's some sacred garments that you have to wear all the time. But anyway, the point here is that there are lots of these individuals that, in order to get to the point where they're at, they're under an oath, and they're under monitoring, and they're taught never to go against it. They'll lose their family, they'll lose everything. They're under an oath, and they actually say in their oath, if I break this oath, you have a right to kill me. But it's not just the threat that they could die, it's the threat that they will lose their family and everything, their money, their, your whole life is taken away from you. And trust me, they can do it because they're involved in the CIA and the FBI and the government. That's why you see so many Mormons running in for senators and presidents and stuff like that. They're high up in the FBI, and they're high up in areas like Area 51 and any place where it requires secret information. They have to use, in some cases they can't use somebody like a Mormon, because they need an expert in this particular field. And if somebody has that information, like for instance Tesla, back when he was the scientist and everybody knew he had this information, he was working on experiments. The government wanted his information and he refused to give it to them. Well, they couldn't kill him. He had something over on them because they knew he had information and they had to try and finally get it. They waited till he died. Now, they may have actually killed him because it was an interesting point at that and an interesting timing when he died. It was right after World War II. And they were trying to get this information to build up a society after World War II. And they had to compete with Russia. And you say, well, if Russia and the United States are in on it together, like if the elite run both countries and they run China and stuff like that, why is there competition? Because this is how they use, it's a little ploy to get us to work harder. Because in our mind, we're patriots, see, and we're working for our government, so that we'll work harder. See, they don't force people. The missionaries do it willingly. Jehovah's Witnesses willingly go out and say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. And then they're brought up somehow, maybe a CEO of a company or something like that, and they can trust them. They can put a Jehovah's Witness over a company, and they know that they can never tell. They can never. As you get going through the ranks, you begin to realize that you have books and information the rest of the organization doesn't have. And if you ever try to divulge that, and I've seen it happen many times. I mean, I was in an elders meeting at Jehovah's Witnesses many different times this has happened. I mean, I found out about certain troubleshooters in the organization and individuals that go in and will troubleshoot, meaning find somebody as the Jehovah's Witnesses talking out or not saying or doing what they want, and they will just make something up against them and have them, which is what they did to me. They made an accusation up against me that wasn't true. In other words, they had 2 young girls come out and drug me, and then they disfellowshipped me for something, and there isn't any. It's a kangaroo court. It's not anything. It's just all behind the closed doors. It's political. They have policies. Anyway, it's all very political. And there are other organizations other than Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses, to say the least. There's The Scientology is very, 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 very controlled and running Hollywood and different things. So this is the kind of government we've had for a long, long time. But most people are walking around not realizing they're a part of it, because, you know, you might be just a local Baptist minister, and you don't realize that you're being brainwashed as well to tell everybody every day, hey, everything's fine, pay your taxes, be a good little, you know, Christian. If they call you to go to war or the draft, go ahead and do it. And they'll just teach you stuff like don't lie, don't steal. So if the government says, you know, we want you to go and murder all the Iraqis, you just got to do it. They're not really teaching you spiritual principles. So everybody's involved in the conspiracy to some extent. But remember we talked about yesterday the fact that the Bible says there's coming a time when the rich and the poor will be frightened and telling the mountains to fall over them, to hide them from the one who's coming in his wrath. And, you know, what this tells us is that there's coming a point, according to Scripture, according to prophecy, where it doesn't matter who you are. Everybody's going to be exposed. It's a day that will come when the cockroaches are going to be found and exterminated. And there will be straitjackets put on people, and they'll be hauled away. And it will be the time for one age to pass and a new administration to be established. And when that time comes, it's over. And they know about it. I mean, remember what the Bible says. It says, you think you have faith? Well, the devil believes and shudders. Right? And the devils and his demons, they shudder. Remember when Jesus came, he says, have you come to torment us before our time? They know there's coming a day of judgment. They're just partying until, like it's 1999, right? They're just partying and trying to enjoy themselves the best they can. And I suppose some of them might think that they could have this war, that, you know, that maybe they could, at the last minute, they could win this war, or there's something they could do to defeat God or something. But I don't really believe they believe that. But in the meantime, they've got to keep their power. But now, looking around the world today, when you start seeing the veil being taken off, we're beginning to see this expose. We're beginning to find out that these billionaires, what have they done? It's all starting to come out into the light. And I think a lot of people are panicking right now. The question is what can we do? Because I've been telling you guys that some of these things are happening and trying to explain what's happening, because I think we need to know. We have to know so that we can prepare. But the question is, a lot of you are depressed and sad now, and you don't know if you're going to be able to handle it. I mean, you want to go out and scream. You've been locked up for a month and a half, and they're saying you're going to be several more months. You may lose your car, your job, your family, and this is going to get hairy. The question is how do we have faith? How are we going to get through this? We were talking about you got to have faith. If they say, come on, and you're a police officer, you need to go out there and quell the riots and shoot your brothers. Well, I would never do that. But we've never been in this situation before in this generation. Now, other past generations have had to do things like this. But now we're talking about now. Things have definitely changed over the years. I mean, there was a time when people would go to war and they used bayonets and stab people and murder people. But for a long time, Americans have never had to get their hands dirty. They've never seen a battlefield. And So, and things have changed. I mean, we used to have, women had veils and they sat down and men probably thought they were the boss and they were treating their wives very, very badly. Well, over the last 20, 30 years, we've frowned on that. And women have a right to vote and they can say what they want and do what they want and they got jobs. So we've come a long way. We know that it's illegal to have slaves. And the vast majority of people now aren't willing to go back to that. And we've never been put in a position. But I will tell you what is really in the heart of most people. What is really in their heart? What will they do when it comes push to shove? That's what the question really is. What will you do? I saw a program of Phil, what's that guy? Dr. Phil. What's this program where, start with, he just had these 3 women out on the stage in their little stool sitting around in a circle. And he was talking to them. One was a younger woman and one was an older woman. And they were talking about another woman that wasn't there. I think the older woman was her sister. And the younger woman, I think it was her mom they were talking about. Well, this woman, they were just talking a lot of bad stuff about her. They were saying that she was a bad mother. And the other lady was her sister, she was a bad sister. That she's been lying to him all this time. They're just finding out that she's literally on the street. She's a drug addict. She had been in prison. They knew that. But she said she got clean and she was doing fine and had counseling. And Bill was showing them pictures exposing this woman going through the dumpster and shooting up with needles and stuff like this. So Phil says, I'm going to bring this woman out. This dirty woman, this nasty woman, this awful woman, this terrible person that treated you guys this way all these years and went to prison. Why, obviously, it's all her fault. So he brought her out. And she comes out and she sits down. And you could see the look of disgust on her sister's eyes. And her daughter was saying, Mom, you're not even... I didn't want you to be my mom. You know, you always treated me so bad. I don't understand you. And why did you do it? And then Phil started in on her. You're a terrible woman. How could you do this to your family? And at one point, Phil told the sister and the daughter, you need to disown this woman. Unless she straightens up right now and gets some help, you need to disown her. Well, this woman, she was crying. She started crying. And he would ask her a question like, why did you do it? And she was crying. She could barely talk. And she didn't know what to say. She tried to explain. She said something like, my life was taken from me. And I don't know. I know it's my fault. I'm guilty. I'm not worthy of life. And I don't expect you to forgive me. But I don't know what to do. And they cut her off and started cutting her down again. You worthless piece of crap. How dare you get addicted to drugs, and you just left your children when they needed you. Well, see, at this point, we haven't heard her side. But most people don't want to hear her side because they know that she's a worthless person. That's all they want to know. And Phil jumped on her with both feet. I mean, maybe Phil knew a little bit about this woman. I'm sure if you heard what the woman did. I mean, evidently, it started off years before it started. She was a good mom and had a good life, and her daughter was, they were happy. And one day, I guess her daughter was in high school, came home, had a boyfriend. I don't know if they were a boyfriend, girlfriend, but it was a friend that was a boy. And I don't know if I think the boy had some drugs, and he came over one day and gave the mother a drug. and I don't know what it was, but whatever it was, she said, the drug changed me immediately. And I wasn't doing it for the boy, to get attention from the boy. I was doing it because I needed the drug. And the drug ruined her life. She ended up in prison and in rehab and stealing to get more money to get the drug. And so, of course, what her family sees is a thief, a drug addict, a worthless nobody who ain't worth nothing, rummaging through the garbage. Now think about it. Do you think this person is evil? What kind of a person would do selfishness? You know, wouldn't you consider somebody who's evil selfish? Right? So how is she being selfish when she doesn't even have a home? She's rummaging through the garbage. Obviously, she wouldn't want to do that. She was crying. She missed her daughter. She missed her sister. Ashamed of her life. She didn't make any excuses. Never, not once. She just sat there and cried and bawled as they told her she was worthless. And then they ended their relationship with her at that point. And she sobbed. And I thought, do these people know really what they're doing? Do they really understand the power of that drug? The addiction? You say, well, yeah, but a lot of people get addicted and they get over it, Dave. They get strong. They suck it up. They pull up their pants and their big boy pants, and they just do it. And if you have love for your children, you wouldn't do that. Well, I agree. It's hard to understand, but I cannot judge that person. In fact, I felt very sorry for her. And I felt so angry that at that moment I wanted to just go right through the television, right through my phone, and grab Phil and say, stop it. You do not know what this woman went through. You cannot judge her. And I wanted to go and I wanted to put my arms around that woman and say, what did you go through? Tell me everything. I want to hear. I want to know. I want to share with me your experience. And don't feel like, I don't want you to feel ashamed. I want you to know that you're loved. You know, she was somebody's daughter too. Somebody failed her as well. I ask myself sometimes the same questions, like, why did my dad stop talking to me? And I know there's lots of excuses and stuff, but I've never been able to, in my own mind, figure out how he could do it, because I couldn't possibly do it with my children. I could never, no matter what my daughter ever did, which she's a wonderful child, but if she ever did anything wrong, I couldn't possibly throw her away. So what makes people do what they do? Well, there's the guy that had the patch. And if he didn't do bad things, the government would take the patch away and he would be in some excruciating pain and he couldn't bear it. Now, there's some very powerful, valiant people with integrity that would rather die or be tortured. They'd rather be tortured than to hurt their family. And I think most of us would be. But it's never that simple, is it? It's never quite that simple. Because the guy that had the patch, that was working for the government, he said, I never really gave the government everything. I just gave them enough so that they didn't end my life right away. Because behind the scenes, he was trying to find a way to beat them. It's not like he was all bad. And no one's ever all bad. And I don't even know what's going on with Trump. That's something we're going to have to wait and find out. But I tell you, nobody's... Well, you know, you say, well, what about Bill Gates? He's got to be all bad. Well, you know, I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of Bill Gates when he was a young man. He's just some little nerd, some kid. They took him when he was very young. His mother was on the board of IBM. Can you imagine what kind of brainwashing he went through as a child? Look, I've been through Jehovah's Witnesses. I've seen Mormons. I've seen some of the way people are brought up through the ranks and slowly monitored and brainwashed. He's just a puppet. They created him. I guarantee that the reason that the computers back in Windows 98 said that Bill Gates was the Antichrist, some of you might not know what I'm talking about, but we've talked about that in another video, that there's a program on Windows 98 you got to go in, you got to know how to get in there, and the back door, and you find out it's got all this, you know, the hall of the tortured souls or whatever, and it says Bill Gates is the Antichrist. Well, why do you suppose if he's the Antichrist, he would do that? Because he's not the Antichrist. The people who run Microsoft, the financiers, now he's a billionaire, right? But that's nothing compared to the money they've got. You know, the Rothschilds, we never hear about them, huh? Because they've got trillions, not billions. And Bill Gates is just their little pawn, and he's literally, just like Aleister Crowley, he's a pitiful, sorry little puppet that is in anguish. Bill Clinton, same way. Epstein, they had to work for some very powerful people, and they lost their integrity. And they don't feel worthy, and they think they're doomed, and they might as well, some of them are trying to mitigate what they're doing. Some of them have completely fallen into the darkness, and they can't get back out. But what about us, you and me? We're just normal people, right? We're not Satan worshipers, and up to now, we think we've been pretty good little people. We went to our little church every Sunday and, you know, put our money in the plate. But the time is coming now when we're going to find out that we're all in the same boat. Everybody. And you're going to be tempted to maybe be exposed that you're not perfect either. You're gonna be, you know, you're sitting there, oh, I hate my mother because she left me when I was 12. You don't know what your mother went through, but now, will you leave your children because the government's telling you? Will you give your children a vaccine because it's easier to just believe in the government because you can buy food and at least your kids have food, right? But you're not willing to teach your children how to have integrity? Because listen, here's the thing. What really is real? At a point when you get to the place where you don't know what to do, and it's easier just to do bad things to get along, what your brain starts doing is you start having doubt. That's what you get into, this fog where you begin to have doubt. Now, how is it? What is the doubt? Well, that's the physical. The physical has to have doubt because the physical is only aware of the conscious surroundings, which is pretty much ignorant. You don't know anything because, you know, even if you could come up with a scientific theory to prove that you're immortal or that you're a divine being or that there's a God, you couldn't, with a theory. The greatest theorists of all time, say Einstein, couldn't do it. Because, I mean, you've heard Einstein's theory, but you don't know what it is. You don't know if you believe it. It's a theory. It was a paradigm that took over from the Newton paradigm, because then they found out that Newton's paradigm, even though it worked, my daughter's studying these individuals. There's a guy named David Bloor, who began to look at science from a sociological point of view. And he decided that it was social constructivism. In other words, science isn't really an exact science. It's not, you can't prove it, because every generation has a different theory, and every generation thinks the other people were wrong, and that somehow they're moving forward and progressing and getting smarter and learning. But what he says is that science itself is a sociological experiment. It's the norms of society. It's what we believe because that's what we're told, and it makes sense, and it fits with our, you know, like there was once maybe there was a group of people that lived in the days of Greece or Sumer or Babylon or wherever, and they believed the gods, you know, needed to be given offerings to so we could have the rain and we have good crops and you know, they had a certain viewpoint which they thought was the truth. But today we think it's ridiculous. Newton came along and said, no, we have to have an exact science. And in fact, it was so exact, he came up with a thing called calculus to get it exactly. And it came out and he could prove it. Observable fact. Realism. You can prove it by demonstration. There's where they fail. You can't demonstrate it, can you? Remember, because it turns out that they tried to demonstrate it and they couldn't figure out the rotations of Mercury. And so they end up having to come up with a different theory called the theory of relativity, special theory of relativity. And it was a whole new paradigm, explained the universe differently. And then since then, we've gone to another paradigm called quantum physics. Where does it end? Well, I'll tell you where it ends. It ends with this. The Apostle Paul says, let's try to find that. 1 Corinthians chapter 2. And I want to read you a little bit of this because it's very important. And this is very enlightening here. He says, and I, brethren, when I came to you, did not come with excellence of speech or the wisdom declaring to you the testimony of God. For I determined not to know anything among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified. I was with you in weakness, in fear, and in much trembling. And my speech and my preaching were not with persuasive words of human wisdom. It wasn't like with calculus and math, because that don't prove anything. Not like the Greeks who run after wisdom. But he says, I came to you in a demonstration of the Spirit and of power. Now, see, demonstration, that's in the Greek, apodexy, means to prove it. See, we've been trying to prove things for a long time. Think about this, thousands of years. Thousands of years. Science. But modern day, we think the demonstration or the proof is some sort of math or physical, carnal, conscious proof. You can't demonstrate anything with the physical world. Let's say that you ask God to prove that he exists. How is he going to do that? Because God's not a bearded man up in the sky. And if he was and he came down and he said, now here it is. I prove to you that I'm here. And now my son, obey me. Well, how would you know that that's God? There's some guy in a beard. What if he could do a miracle? Well, guess what? Maybe there's a scientific way that you can do, like to someone a couple thousand years ago, if you had a phone like we have today, and you could communicate with somebody halfway around the world, they'd think it was a miracle. Or if you drove up in an airplane or a car, or you had a television and you could show them a movie, or you had fire, so really you would never be able to prove anything literally, physically, ever. It has to be the witness or the demonstration of the Spirit, doesn't it? The Spirit and of power, which that word in Greek is dunamos. And that's where we get the word dynamite. Verse 5 says that your faith should not be in the wisdom of men, but in the dunamos, the power of God. However, we speak wisdom among those who are mature, and yet not the wisdom of this age, nor of the rulers of this age, who are coming to nothing. But we speak the wisdom of the divine in the mystery. The hidden wisdom, which by the divine being, was ordained before the ages, before the aeons, for our glory. How do you know that you're designed for glory, friend? You can't prove it. So you're getting depressed. You're beginning to feel discouraged because you're scared. And you want proof. Dang it, why can't we have some proof? What are we supposed to do? Just believe it? Were we just like, okay, then why not we just go be a Baptist, right? Believe whatever they tell you. What's the difference? Or you could go, just like the Mormons, they believed it, and they were monitored, and they were, their mind was, twisted and contorted, and they began to believe in something. They don't know what's up, what's Polaroid and what's real. How do you know what's real? How do you know? What, do you have faith? How do you know you have faith? Well, what does the Bible tell us? The Bible tells us that faith is the evidence of things not seen. Oh, great, Dave. So I'm supposed to just believe in stuff I can't see. No, no, no. Here's what you're supposed to do. You have to understand that there is not going to be any evidence of God or of your own being from the physical. You can't work it out consciously. You're not going to say, well, I'm thinking, I've got a mathematical equation, now I believe, and now I can handle this, and I don't fear death. I know that there's a purpose for my life, the Lord loves me, but can you prove it? Can you demonstrate it? Apodexia, with dunamos, a demonstration of power. Because the power is from the Spirit. So it says, the evidence of things not seen. There's evidence, but we don't want the evidence that the world can give us, because it's not, the wisdom of this world, which doesn't amount to anything, doesn't prove anything. It keeps changing. We need to know. We need to see it for ourselves. So what do? We got to look. How do we find it? Well, we can't find that God of vengeance, because they sat down, had a meal with him. They heard his voice, the voice of the 10 words. But Jesus said, you've never seen my Father, and you've never heard his voice. Why? Well, then how do you know him? Well, he's not far off from any one of us, it says in the book of Acts. We have to grope for him as though in the dark, but he's not far off from one. Well, then how are we going to find him? Because it's a spiritual witness. Because his Spirit bears witness with our spirit, and we cry out, Abba, Father. Have you ever had a witness, a testimony? What is that? The evidence of things that is not seen. That's the only evidence that's going to work. Now, how is it going to work? You've tried that, right? Well, let's see. Okay, dear God, give me evidence, see? Because you're still looking for physical evidence in your conscious mind. And all it brings is doubt, and then that brings depression. Prove it, Lord, and nothing happens. So you have doubt. It's an endless cycle of sometimes you can convince yourself that maybe a crisis happens and you're scared, and you go to God in prayer and you pray and you say, please help me. I mean, a miracle happens. You feel like you're so intense and you're praying and something happens, and you think, because you want to believe in God so bad, that somehow the events that happen after that, you think, well, maybe that was God. Remember, I was praying and all of a sudden some guy come along and gave me a bowl of soup. It must have been God. Well, that's not going to be enough to tide you over. Because in a real moment, when you need to know the truth, that's just going to be nothing. It's not going to be enough. So that's why you've got to seek for him and truly find him. So how are we going to find, how are we ever going to know the truth? Well, have you ever thought to yourself, I want to live forever. I want to be happy. A rock doesn't do that. Why? A rock has some sort of, existence, maybe a chemical awareness. Like if two chemicals come together, they're aware of each other and they react. Then there's biological consciousness, genetic, simple biology, and then you get more complex biological creatures that somehow, like some ancestry memory, instinctual behaviors, and then you get to a place where you're starting to become conscious spiritually. What is that? It means you're beginning to think about who you are as a person. You become like God, knowing good and evil, the differences. You don't just react like in a program, but you have to make decisions. The fact that you make those decisions and you're weighing moral issues means that you have a thing inside of you which is called light, or mind, or consciousness, or awareness. A rock is not aware of itself, or its morality, or the value of life. Human beings are aware of the value, and that of and in itself is a witness and a testimony that you have a spirit. But the problem is that we're constantly listening to the flesh. And the flesh says, you can't prove it. That gives you depression. And then maybe it causes anger, and that causes guilt, and it's this endless cycle that's debilitating. And when you feel guilty, especially if you've been lied to and you're told you're guilty, you're bad, it's your fault, then you can't forgive yourself. And then you begin to realize that there's no point. You're angry. Because deep down inside, within yourself, you're not guilty. That's the witness, the testimony, the real witness, the evidence of things not seen. That deep in your heart, I'm a child of God. My spirit bears witness to His, that He loves me. You need to hang on to that testimony because it's the truth. It's true. That's why you're angry. You're angry because they don't listen. They've convinced you that you're worthless on the outer. So you're acting it out. You got your head hanging and they're reprimanding you and telling you you're bad and you're evil. And you know that you've done things that have hurt people and it hurts you. The question is, if you're a really good person and you find that witness, that testimony within of that divine being within you, which you love, you know what you'll do? It'll overcome. You'll have integrity and you'll say, no, I'm hanging on to the fact that I'm a child of my Father in heaven, and I'm worth it. He loves me, and I love my children too. And what I did was because of ignorance. I forgive myself. And you'll have enough strength to come out of that, no matter how many times people spit on you and try to kick you and lie to you and say you're worthless. It's the flesh that's saying you're worthless. It's the depression. The physical testimony is saying you're bad. You got to stick with the spiritual witness. Now, it isn't going to end with just that little moment when you feel like you love yourself. Okay, that's only the beginning. Then what do? Well, let's take it from a physical point of view. Let's say you don't know anything, right? You don't know anything. But somebody hands you a seed and they say, now son, that seed, if you put it in the ground, put about a half an inch of dirt over it, and maybe water it, and go back in about a week, it'll sprout. Well, you don't know, right? What are you going to do? I don't know. I'm going to just give up. I don't even want to try it. No. Somebody told you that it would work. You saw maybe it worked before, so you have evidence. So you don't know, but you got evidence. Well, the evidence, you can try it. You can try to prove it. Okay, and all you do is you go and you put the seed in the ground to try and see if it'll work. All you have to do is have enough faith to put the seed in the ground and then see if it works. Now follow me here. Now, a week later you go back, you see a sprout, you proved it. Now you know that trees are here and they grow. And you have absolute confidence of that, right? You've seen it with your own eyes. Based on a little faith in your heart to try based on the evidence. Well, but now what you really want is there a divine being? Does anyone love you? Is there a purpose to this world? Are you going to live forever? Well, is there any evidence for it? His Spirit will bear witness with yours. Listen, it's inside the still small voice. Doesn't prove it. It's just evidence. Evidence of things not seen. Now, you go get that little seed of faith and put it in the ground. Do what you're told. Believe in it. Try it. Now, I'm not going to, in this video, come up with we're not going to come up with a plan as to how we're going to do this. You know, well, we're going to go down and we're going to say, we're going to go out in the woods and sit down and sit and fast for 40 days and pray, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. No, I'm going to leave that up to you. We've talked about some ways you can do that. What I want you to understand is the method to finding Him, because He's not far off from any one of us, is by first listening to Spirit, not flesh. The Spirit at first is going to give you a testimony. And then you're going to have proof because of the demonstration. When you can achieve the demonstration, let's go back and look at what the Apostle Paul says here. He says, but in demonstration of Spirit and in power. And now, what does Paul mean? Well, he healed the sick. He raised the dead. There's another place where the Apostle Paul, and at the moment I'm drawing a blank as to where it is, but the Apostle Paul says that there was evidence or proof that he was an apostle, one sent by God, because of the miracles that he was performing. So, what you've got to do then, is a lot of people, maybe they're meditating or they're praying, and they receive that witness. And they are happy because they get a witness within them. They think, you know what, God loves me, and I think that, you know, that little moment that I had, you know, when I gave the last nickel I had to that homeless person, and I felt the witness within me. And you're happy, and you know that the Lord loves you, and you're going on your way home, and you get to the house and you put your arms around your children and you think everything's good. Well, that's a good day. Well, next week you lose your job, and then you lose your house, and you're standing on the street and you're scared. And that week before, when you had that testimony, it sort of just went right out the window, because now the flesh is coming down hard on you. The deceiver, the liar, you're worthless. It's your fault. You're a piece of nothing. You can't even take care of your children. You lost it everything because you squandered it. You're no good. And this is what it's telling you. And now you're not happy because you hate yourself. You've fallen into the trap. Why? Because when you got that witness, somebody told you how to plant, you didn't go out and plant. You just took the seed and went away real happy thinking, you know, I know this works, but I won't try it. See, you didn't build your faith and exercise your faith and get to the place where you could prove it in spirit by the demonstration of power. See, that takes a little time. Because what you have to do is you have to carry out the exercise. You've got to put the seed in the ground, put the dirt over it, water it, and come back in a week. And then when it sprouts, then you'll know. You have a testimony within yourself that has now been proven with power and demonstrated. Now you can raise the dead. Now it has been proven. But you realize you have to actually do that. And this is why you've got to have oil in your lamps, because the day is coming. If you don't have any oil in your lamps, then your light will go out. If your faith goes out to keep practicing good works, then the flesh is going to pull you down. The devil's going to pull you down. And when the time comes, you're not going to be ready. So what we got to do is we've got to start listening to that inner witness. And when it is strong enough, then we need to exercise and practice our faith. And we need to expect an answer. We need to wait and tarry, as Jesus told his disciples, could you not wait with me for 1 hour? But they says the grief got to them and they gave out. The flesh got to them. The world got to them. And they got depressed and they got tired. They couldn't hang on to the Spirit. They couldn't hang on to the love. They couldn't hang on to the faith. The flesh got to them and they got weak and they fell asleep. Didn't mean they physically fell asleep. It meant that like Christ was asleep in the boat, right? Your Christ being falls asleep and you're only conscious of the outer lies and deception, and it disrupts your whole world. So what we have to do is, while we have time, because you can't do it at the last minute, friends, but while we have time, we need to go and meditate and pray and receive our own testimony that is a spiritual testimony, that we can then, having that evidence, use to go and demonstrate the efficiency of it. So I need you guys to understand that you've got to go and work your salvation out with fear and trembling. You've got to go forth and exercise your faith and grow from day to day, from glory to glory. Because you see, the Apostle Paul was talking about that old law, which is the physical, the carnal. And he says that to this day, the children of Israel, when they're reading the Torah, they read it with a veil over their heart. Because they can't see the light, which is within the source. They see only the veil that's hiding the light, which is the letter of the law. The physical, carnal things, the material things. And it depresses them. It deceives them. And they don't get the sense of it. They don't understand. They don't know God. They don't know the divine being. They don't know themselves, because the Apostle Paul says we, with unveiled faces, not like the children of Israel who all perished in the wilderness, but we with unveiled face. We take the veil off. We look straight into the light. And like a mirror, we see the face of God. Now, if you're looking at the face of God, it's not physical, right? Because you can't see God and yet live. Not the physical. It's not the veil. But you're looking into the light, and you see the face of God in a mirror. When you look in a mirror, what do you see? You see yourself. See, you've got to get into the physical, deep down, meditate and pray, and get to the source and find out who you really are. If you're immortal, if you're real, if there's a way to be happy and live forever, you've got to find it and have a testimony. You've got to have a demonstration. If you've got proof, then you should be able to demonstrate it. If you're the divine being, you should be able to tell that mountain to be moved. And it needs to move, because it listens to the divine being. And all the angels obey his word. And you will command the devils to get out, and they'll obey you in the name of that Christ, that spiritual, powerful man that sits at the right hand of God, in power and authority. We have boldness to go into his holy, holy place. We have boldness to enter into his throne, and whatsoever we ask, we shall receive. But if you don't have that boldness, if you feel frightened because you're not sure, if you have doubt, it's because you're dwelling on the conscious, mathematical, material things. It doesn't make sense. You're confused. You're worthless. You're listening to the liar. Listen to God. He tells you he loves you. When you hear that, go demonstrate it. Say, okay, I believe you. Now, I want to demonstrate the power of the Spirit. If the Spirit's really powerful, I want to see how simply having faith and believing something makes it happen. Because up to now, everything's been happening to you. right? Oh man, the car broke down. You don't see the spirit or the reason it happened. See, when something happens, you say, why did this happen to me? But what you should be saying is, what am I supposed to learn with this? Why did this happen? What is it supposed to teach me? Because this has got to be a spiritual thing. If you're caught up in that thing has more power than you, why do you persecute me? Why are you in my face? Then you think you're giving it power. See what you're doing? You're giving it power. It has no power. It was caused from you. According to thy faith may it be. You are the ones you're the ones causing everything. So if you're not aware of that, if you don't listen to that testimony, you don't believe it, and you don't demonstrate it, then you see you're going to get lost and depressed, and this ignorance and this deception is going to keep telling you that it didn't happen because of anything you did, but it's happening to you. Poor little thing. And then you start getting frustrated because you have no power over it. Then you start getting angry because deep down you have that witness. You know this isn't your fault. And you're having a struggle. There's a battle, a war going on. And you need to win the battle by not listening to the 5 kings, the 5 Axis lords of the Philistines. You got to put them to death like King David. And retrieve the Ark of the Covenant, which is that holy place where the most precious witness of all, the testimony, the witness of the testimony. The proof. You got to get to the proof. You got to see into the light. As in a mirror, you find yourself, the source, the reality, and you prove it. And you demonstrate it. But not before you kill the 5 Axis lords of the Philistines. Because they have stolen your proof. Same thing with Joshua. Went into the promised land. He had to take the 5 kings and crucify them before he could win the battle and go in and conquer the land. The 5 kings is your 5 senses. They're lying to you. They're lying to you. And when you stop listening to them, then you're going inside and you're beginning to listen to that testimony of the Spirit. And even that's not enough. Now you got to exercise your faith and tarry and not fall asleep in grief, but in expectation, waiting for the proof until it arrives. You must pray continually. So if you're sick and tired of this world and the lies and the fear, then once and for all, sit down and tarry and wait for the promised Holy Spirit. Don't stop until it comes, until you get your proof, until it's demonstrated. Once you've been filled with the Holy Spirit, it's an event, and a wind shall come through, a mighty wind. That's a spirit, a mighty spirit, a powerful, invisible force. And it will shake the house wherein you sit. And that is this physical world. And it's going to come down because it's not true. It's not real. The foundations will come down. And then you will have lit upon your top crown chakra the twin flame, the physical energies and the spiritual energies, which will become one flame split in twain, meaning the 2 energies that have become united. And that energy is that spiritual union with the flesh, so that you now have contact with the spiritual side. You know it. You can demonstrate it. And the Holy Spirit is then, you're baptized in the Holy Spirit. And you're baptized in power in the Holy Spirit. And you can demonstrate this because it's a reality now. You've seen it, you've proven it, and you've gotten your mind to believe in it. Not just a little faith, but you've exercised your faith, And you've demonstrated it. Now it's more than faith. Now it's knowledge. And hereby, we get eternal life by knowing you, the God and the one whom you sent forth, Jesus Christ. The Christ in you. You got to know you and the divine being. And this means eternal life. Knowing it. Knowing. Not having faith in it, but knowing it. Because the truth shall set you free. See? Moses brought the law. But Christ says, I bring the truth. And the truth will set you free. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. You will know. You will have gnosis. And when you know and you have gnosis, because it's something you've demonstrated, you've proven. Not with the worldly wisdom, not with the philosophy of the world or mathematics or the physical environment or such a testimony as that, because it's worthless. It's not going to hold you over. And you need to have a testimony because the time's coming right now when you're going to need faith. So I'm telling you guys got to go out right now. We're talking serious business. The Bible tells you that Babylon's falling, and we're going into a new age, and there will be a tribulation that the world's never seen. If he didn't bring those days short, on account of the chosen ones, no flesh would be saved. We're coming into those times, and I'm telling you, friends, this is real. I don't know how else to warn everyone. It's only my testimony. It means nothing to you. You've got to go out and get your own testimony. I don't blame you if you don't believe in me. If you don't believe me or what I'm telling you. I don't think you should believe anyone. You can only believe. Jesus said you don't need no man to teach you. But the Holy Spirit, she will teach you all things that you need to know in the hour in which you need to know it. I will not leave you orphans. I go away and I send you the Holy Spirit. The Comforter. You must find that comfort. You must find that Spirit. That's why it's called the Comforter. Because without it, we're not comforted in this world. We don't have any knowledge, which is comforting to have knowledge, isn't it? To know who you are. Without knowing the truth, you can't be comforted. I tell you, if you don't have the Holy Spirit, that Comforter, then when that time comes, you will not be able to have integrity. Because that is something that comes from the Holy Spirit. Faith comes from the Holy Spirit, and integrity, and love, and goodness, and decency, and kindness, and all these things, and self-control. You can't be a good person. You're not a good person. Why do you think you're a good person? That's the flesh. Quit bragging. Hey, oh, I'm going to keep the law, and I'm better than you. I got a brownie point. No. No man should boast. We're all in the same boat. You've just got to find your true self so that you can have assurance. So that you can act and demonstrate the truth. And withstand the fiery darts of the devil. So anyway, friends, I'm going to go ahead and go. I hope you guys have a really great day. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow. Have a good one.